Emma?
Ilagom nos traes.
Something is not adding.
If you thought every horror movie in 2025 brought the scares, think again. These aren't just bad, they're the kind of movies that make you scream at the screen. From limp jump scares to monsters made of pure cringe, we're counting down the 10 worst horror disasters of the year so far. Trust me, you'll want to watch these only if you enjoy suffering. Number 10. The Surrender. This occult horror drama directed by Julia Max follows a grieving woman who returns to her childhood home to help her mother perform a strange ritual rooted in ancient tradition. What could have been an atmospheric descent into familial trauma and dark spirituality instead meanders through cryptic dialogue and lifeless pacing. The performances are stiff, the horror elements minimal, and the stakes feel oddly distant despite the emotional subject matter. While the film tries to explore themes of control, loss, and surrender, it never builds momentum, resulting in a story that feels both thin and emotionally disconnected. Its slow burn fizzles before it ever ignites horrors. Number 9. The Woman in the Yard.
Today's the day.
Directed by Jaume Collet Serra, this horror drama follows widowed mom Ramona and her children, whose quiet life is disrupted by a mysterious woman draped in black, sitting silently in their yard. The premise starts strong. Psychological horror meets grief but quickly unravels under a muddled third act. Instead of building tension, the film floods in cliches and convoluted reveals that undercut its eerie beginning. Though visually polished and anchored by a committed lead performance, its emotional stakes feel muddled. The pacing drags and the payoff ultimately disappoints. What began as a chilling probe into depression fades into a confused and frustrating narrative turn. Number 8. Borderline.
What kind of way is that to treat our guests?
Crazy bitch!
This horror thriller directed by Jimmy Warden follows pop star Sophia, her athlete boyfriend, and a bodyguard as they face off against an obsessive fan who breaks into their home. With Samara Weaving and Ray Nicholson in lead roles, it promises reckless charm, but the film never finds a consistent tone. It lurches between stalker drama, dark comedy, and thriller without committing to any, leaving both tension and laughs flat. Characters feel more like caricatures than real people, and pacing suffers as the plot juggles multiple perspectives. Despite competent performances, the film never fully engages, ultimately feeling like style without substance. Number 7. Ash.
It's your fault.
Directed by Flying Lotus, this sci-fi horror throws astronaut Rhea onto a mysterious foreign planet after she awakens to a massacre aboard her research station. What begins with eerie visuals and psychedelic potential dissolves into a confused blur of flashbacks, hallucinatory sequences, and unreliable memories. While its kinetic setup and intense finale show flashes of cinematic flair, the story never finds solid footing. Characters lack depth, plot threads meander, and the narrative feels weighed down by style over substance. It looks vivid, but the emotional core never takes hold, and by the time chaos strikes, you're more puzzled than petrified. Number 6. The Ritual.
First of all, we are the ones that stand in the breach.
Directed by David Medell and starring Al Pacino and Dan Stevens as rival priests, this exorcism horror centers on a famed 1920s case in rural Iowa. The setup teams with potential old-world spirituality, moral conflict, and a chilling historical backdrop. But the execution is disappointingly flat. Performances feel uninspired, pacing drags despite a brisk 98-minute runtime, and the film relies heavily on worn exorcism cliches. What could have been a gripping, character-driven descent into spiritual terror instead trudges through predictable rituals and sterile scares. The Ritual squanders its talent and premise, leaving little more than a hollow retread of familiar demonic tropes. Number 5. Control Freak.
Stop.
Directed and written by Shal No, this body horror drama centers on Val, a motivational speaker grappling with anxiety and obsessive scratching after her mother's death and a family curse. The concept, mental illness personified through body horror, starts strong, but the feature-length expansion struggles to sustain momentum. Repetitive scratching scenes and a jittery pacing overshadow the underlying themes, making the narrative feel aimless. Despite strong visuals and Kelly Marie Tran's committed performance, Control Freak overstays its welcome, turning a tight short into a bloated lecture on trauma that never fully resonates. Number 4, Shadow of God.
Resist the evil that lays before me. Identify its true nature.
Directed by Michael Peterson, this religious horror centers on exorcist Mason Harper returning home when his deceased father inexplicably resurfaces. The premise of God as the villain could have breathed new life into the subgenre, but the film's ambition collapses under cheap CGI, incoherent editing, and a script that oscillates between profound mythos and hollow exposition. The lead performance has promise, but it's buried beneath special effects that look laughably dated and pacing that falters as the story veers into symbolism without substance. Shadow of God squanders a unique twist on exorcism horror, delivering a muddled mess rather than the divine reckoning it teases. Number 3, Popeye The Slayer Man.
The Sailor Man is real. He doesn't take kindly.
In this horror parody directed by James Malone, a group of young YouTubers breaks into an abandoned spinach factory to film a viral challenge, only to discover it's home to a twisted, monstrous version of Popeye. Armed with a rusted anchor and driven by rage, he picks them off one by one. The story makes no sense, the acting is wooden, and the characters are just there to get killed. The mask looks like something from a bad Halloween store, and the fake blood is overused to the point of boredom. What could have been a fun, silly slasher is just lazy and repetitive. Popeye, the Slayer Man isn't scary, it's not funny, it's just a waste of time. Number 2, Into the Deep.
The ocean is a dangerous wonder. That kingdom is your kingdom too.
This action horror thriller follows a group of tourists and divers hijacked by pirates who force them to dive into shark-infested waters in search of sunken drugs, supposedly to raise tension on the high seas. But instead it delivers a clunky mishmash of shark attacks and hostage drama that never clicks. Dialogue is cliched and wooden, the pirate plot overshadows the shark horror, and the CGI sharks range from bland to laughable. Even Richard Dreyfuss shows up only to deliver a moralizing speech over the credits. Into the Deep is a messy, overstuffed stew of action thriller cliches, loud, forgettable, and about as deep as its title claims. Number 1, Piglet.
Get me!
Here it is, the worst horror movie of 2025 so far. Piglet is about a human-pig hybrid slasher stalking friends on a birthday camping trip, but it fails in every possible way. The dialogue sounds like it was written by a bored teenager. The characters have the depth of cardboard, and the killer, meant to be terrifying, is dressed in a mask that looks like it came from a dollar store clearance bin. The kills are slow, awkward, and edited so poorly you'll wonder if the director has ever seen a horror film. Even the sound effects seem confused, with random squeals and cartoon grunts thrown in. Piglet is a disaster from start to finish, so bad it's not even fun, just exhausting. If you make it to the end without laughing or switching it off, you deserve an award.